Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Sheehan, the director of the BFA and creative writing here at Stony Brook, and welcome everyone to our Imagine Wednesday featured readers today, our new faculty. We are so thrilled to have these two amazing talents on board. Just a little word about the format. We're going to be switching back and forth between our readers today. And I'm going to get out of the way as soon as possible so we can get to the good stuff. So I'll give the skimpiest of introductions to our first reader, new faculty member, Miranda Beeson, who's teaching CWL 190 right now, will be teaching poetry consistently as we move forward, and it has a manuscript called Wildlife that emerged out of her own thesis project as an MFA student here at Stony Brook. So we're just thrilled to have you, Miranda. Take it away.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Molly. A note about the elephant or other beasts in the room. I'm just saying, perhaps just take this hour as a distraction from the places that you're desperate to go, but perhaps maybe shouldn't go because we have no control over them at this moment. So to art as an antidote. I'm going to be reading from these two manuscripts. One is Wildlife. I'm going to start out with a piece from a new manuscript in process called The Horizontal Project, because I am lazing out long on the page as opposed to standing up portrait. This first piece, I always like to see, you can see what it looks like. It's lazing out long on the page. Two notes I'd like to say. What you need to know in terms of the audience. This was from this summer. It takes place in the North Fork. I'd like to give a special shout out to Claudia Acevedos Quinones, who I believe is on a train out there somewhere, for revision notes. And say, as my fellow MFAer, she just did get her manuscript picked up. So I like to champion my fellow MFA pals. Claudia, if you're out there. Also, I'll take one other note before I jump in, that most of the titles from this manuscript are taken from poems by Mae Swenson. And I say thank you to Julie Sheehan, because she gave me that book when I got my MFA. And then my last note is when I wasn't being distracted by the thing we won't talk about, and I was looking at these poems this morning, I realized that they all address the spirit and the flesh. So the unconscious mind is always at work. The things we can see, the things we cannot see, the things we can touch, the things we cannot touch. So speaking to what we're all going through right now, the invisible and the visible. So this is, the title of this poem is What's Most Dense is Invisible. It's always been like this for me, entering an old house, a dim room, sensing a tension in the air, a dark density on the stair. I catch my breath, hold it, knowing a presence is there. 5 women in that Victorian on First Street, the sad hulk of a blacksmith's apprentice in the corner of my room in Leverett, Massachusetts at 3 a.m., the dead detective on the 3rd floor of my childhood's long lost home. He still wore his fedora. Once on a narrow slate path outside a cottage in Cutchogue, this is my haunt, go find your own. Not spoken, but transported, all the same, on the air. People want to know, so are they ghosts? No, not really. And often, yes, not friendly. Usually unsettled, as we all are these days. The pandemic, death traveling on the air. No safe place to rest. Take Lady G. She does not appear to me, although she did to the owner of this 19th century boarding house, scared him into a believer, where I have been renting a floor hoping to rest. But I know she perches, pale and distressed, on the ornate Victorian love seat on the landing right outside my bolted bedroom door. Before ascending the stairs almost every night to the third floor with its view of the bay. So here we both are, untouchable, longing for and sharing only the memory of flesh, shades of our former selves, Lady G and me. Sometimes I speak to her silently, such a thin veil between life and death these days, yes? Untwine the long twined rope, I say, cease looking for something or someone who's no longer here, was ever here, or even over there where you are. But perhaps I am really talking to myself. A small bronze bell rang all by itself in the hot hydrangeaed garden earlier today. Yes, no breeze. 5:30 on another sultry afternoon. Mariners and more who convene here at the end of each day, their salty selves shifting back and forth between land and sea, the dead and the living. So many souls have passed through this house with its many floors and many rooms, each with its own door. I sat with these travelers in the garden, thinking in metaphor. As night falls, the other houses on Fifth Street are baking in the almost August evening. Children squeal, running under a sprinkler next door. Wasn't that Marion's house? You know, the incredible gardener. Gone now, a new family passing through. As for me and Lady G, for this time we remain twined together, she on one side of the door, me on the other. Who's to say which is which? We are all strange companions united by the ghost of memory, the ghost of touch. Voila.
Wow, that's lovely. Okay, so back to me for another emaciated, brief introduction, this time of our other new faculty member, Molly Gaudry, who's the author of We Take Me Apart and Desire, a Haunting, and who's going to be doing, because she's endlessly flashy, screen sharing in this Zoom session to help us follow her latest project, a manuscript in progress that she'll be reading from. And I would love to predict for you what Molly will be teaching. But the fact is, Molly can teach anything. She writes novels in verse, she writes poetry, she writes lyric nonfiction. So she is truly, this is coming from a one-trick pony here who is lucky to be able to even write a poem. She is truly multi-genre. And we're just so happy to have you in our midst. And take it away, Molly.
Thank you so much, Julie. Let me just share my screen.
I believe Control Tab was involved. Ooh.
Is that it? Did it work?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the first chapter of my latest book called Fit Into Me. And it's memoir-ish, but there's a novel inside of it. In February, oops, uh-oh. All right, let's see if my arrows work. Okay. In February 2014, after being single for years, I began seeing a man who was divorced, nearing 40, and feeling his own clock ticking. When I read online that the chances of everyone's first marriage working out aren't great, but that divorced men tend to stick with their second wives until the end, I got over the fact of his divorce pretty fast. He had moved to Salt Lake City for a job, and it paid well enough, he told me, to support a family. A few months later, I would turn him into the Portuguese lover. But the Portuguese lover is a fiction. Everything about the Portuguese lover is a fiction. Everything is a story. You are a story. I am a story. I never saw him again. Sometime later, I was invited to dinner by another man, and he too wanted a family. Slowly, I warmed to the idea. Maybe. This man would become the young lover, and not everything about the young lover is fiction. Least of all, the way her body existed only where he touched her. In my notes, I began to understand my manuscript more clearly. I wrote, desire is about loneliness, about friendship and parenthood. It's a love story and comes after a heartbreak story. It is also about death and second chances. I put it away and began compiling word lists for Fit Into Me. The words were taken randomly, but precisely from If Not Winter. The first word I pulled from the tin I kept them in was dripping. In my notes, I granted myself permission. Go ahead with these words. Let them inspire. See what comes. Word list number 1. Dripping, younger, lattice, great, lightly, be, purple, come, swear, hair. Preface. Fit Into Me. I write this novel in offering to the tea house woman, that complicated figure who appears first as bride-to-be in We Take Me Apart, and then years later as widow in Desire a Haunting, which I've only just completed. This is a bad period for me. It's the end of a book, and there's a kind of loneliness, as if that closed book were going on still somewhere else, inside me, like an open eye. Salt Lake City, Utah, February 2014. And so the first word of the tea house woman's story is dripping, which could refer to anything. The faulty kitchen faucet, the basement ceiling of the tea house after the flood, stems of wildflower bouquets pulled putrid from tall white pitchers, her own wet cunt. In fact, dripping refers to Sappho. The word appears twice in her body of work, first in fragment 37, translated here by Anne Carson, In My Dripping Pain, and again in fragment 119, Cloth Dripping. Regarding fragment 37, Carson tells us the text is cited as Sappho's in the following discussion of words for pain. And the Aeolic writers call pain a dripping, as if a pain wounds because it drips and flows. Translated differently by Mary Barnard, the fragment appears as follows: pain penetrates me drop by drop. In her thesis, the Mary Barnard translation of Sappho, Angela Christie speculates that Sappho was thinking of dripping stalagmites. Barnard corrects her. I am sure that she did not have stalagmites in mind. Nor did I. I thought of a faucet dripping in the next room, say, then of a heartbeat, then of the pulse, then of throbbing pain. The comparison is not with a hard stone-pointed object, but with rhythmic liquid movement inside the body. The tea house woman surprises herself by taking a new lover. He is younger than her Portuguese lover, and this morning she lies awake in bed waiting for him to stir. The rising sun through the trellis beyond her bedroom window forms a lattice shadow over her torso. She lifts her hand into the light, watches the pattern of the lines moving over her skin. The motion of her wrist is reminiscent of Catherine the Great's upon receiving Marie Antoinette's court painter Louise Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun, who later wrote, "The sight of this famous woman so impressed me that I found it impossible to think of anything. I could only stare at her." The tea house woman slides down along the body of her lover, takes his cock into her mouth and sucks lightly, lips soft as a bee landing on a plum blossom. He is purple, hard. Awake, he reaches with both arms and pulls her toward him, onto him. We are chest to chest, and I'm in your ear now, whispering you're going to make me come. This is new. The tea house woman's husband had always finished first, even on their wedding night, and he apologized the way men do when they come too soon, and she hugged him and felt almost like herself, comforting him, until it got to the point where, listening to him snore, she would roll over and swear at the ceiling, trying to convince herself that next time would be better. Inevitably, during those early hours, and before the rest of the kitchen staff arrived, she found herself downstairs with Nell, letting the older woman console her over a pot of coffee and a plate of hot cinnamon rolls. Imagine the kitchen of a spreading old house in a country town. A great black stove is its main feature, but there's also a big round table and a fireplace with 2 rocking chairs placed in front of it. Well, Nell would say, retrieving the previous night's chocolate trees from the walk-in and placing them on the tops of freshly frosted coconut-dusted cupcakes. Have you experimented with this? Or while cutting biscuits out of trifle dough, maybe you could wear that. Eventually, even she threw her hands into the air where they left little puffs of flour like clouds and said, "Men, what can you do?" "Tell me what I can do for you," you say, your hands clamped around my hips and rocking them forward and back against yours, my hair falling long down the sides of my face, nearly onto your face, your eyes watching mine for instructions, signs. And I don't know what I want or how to ask for it until you stop. Stunned, waiting, "Don't stop," I say, and you flip me over, still inside me, onto my back, yes, like that, as I push back against you, pulling you closer, yes, pushing back under your weight and forward, yes, until you fall heavy on top of me, your eyes finally closing when we are, no, they are, again, chest to chest. And as her young lover rests his left temple in the cradle of her right shoulder and jaw, the tea house woman stares up at the ceiling, caressing his neck and back, thinking, it's only fair for a woman to come more. Think of all the times they didn't care. So I'm stopping there for now.
Wonderful. Oh, we're both cooking with gas now, Molly. This is like, the stakes are high. Off you go.
That's great. Am I back on? Excellent, fabulous. That was incredible, Molly. I love that integration and like play, the play back and forth. So I'm going to move to 2 poems from this manuscript, Wildlife, which is currently in circulation for publication. If you're out there, those who I invited today, call me, text me, email me, all of the above. The manuscript really deals with the social contract. What do we, all living creatures, sentient beings on the planet, owe to each other? It's so topical. And I've kept it this living manuscript, so it's been gone through like 6 revisions, which I really recommend to all of you out there as you're sending your manuscript out. Keep revising it because it keeps it alive. It reinvents it so that it's not lying there on the page. So these 2 poems were initially published by Barrow Street, a wonderful journal. The first one, I like for my 3 tenors to see shape and form, is very much not of the horizontal project. It is also of the spirit. Actually, this particular spirit appeared in the first poem I just read, so somehow they seem to want to commingle today. And this is The Smith's Tale. In a low shadowed corner in my midwinter 3 a.m. room stands a sad hulk of a man, hump-shouldered and silent. His stiff, sooty clothes layered like shingles on the house of his soul. The blacksmith's apprentice, his molten days flowing one through the next in a succession of horseshoes and hitching posts, hammers and tongs. A solitary spirit who has refused to leave this 18th century smithy, currently the house of my 21st century friends. I I've had such visitations before. Fright does not factor in, only a palpable curiosity why a weight won't lift. You have seen it, I'm sure, the last fierce struggle followed by an ascension in the relief in the room, a body turning the color of clay, the eyes dim pools, but such a lift, shift in the air, like a longed for breeze. He regards me, hooded brow, black eyes, this Neanderthal, all spite and sorrow, a plea for help made flesh. Blacksmith, heal thyself, I say. I am busy carrying my own weights, measuring out my own molten days. Either hammer the iron or lie flat on the anvil, waiting to be struck. Smite those chains, link by link. At which point he did disappear from the corner of the room. So here's hoping. The second poem, I just thought they both came out in Barrow Street, is certainly of the flesh, most definitely of the flesh. Its title is Coup de foudre, a French phrase for that moment when you encounter somebody and I think all of your molecules sort of explode out of the blue. Only the French could come up with that, coup de foudre. So, of the flesh. Did you lose your keys, I say, rolling down my car window on a wild, windy mid-June day by the bay? Whitecaps, the bridge, and you. Talk about cinematic. Why do you look just like John Slattery in Mad Men, all cropped white hair and vigor? Can I say you are life force made flesh? Your stunned expression stuns me right back. A woman drives by and rectifies the wreckage of your day. What are the odds? Your black credit card, too. I say, I knew it was you, not knowing why, but knowing I knew. The magnetic field of feeling, the absence of thought. I found them washed up on the beach down there where I live. Follow me. And you do. A strange intimacy watching happiness fracture the face of a man you just met. Its naked beauty. I hand you your keys and card, keys worn and warm, card sleek and hard. We are palm to palm. Pull me through the words of the world where words matter. Sever the slice of late afternoon sun that falls between us. Let me slip out of my skin, slip into yours. Of the flesh.
Of the flesh. Molly.
Okay, let me share again. Okay. Oops. All right. A few days ago, I started blogging again, journaling again, reaching out again, inviting readers in again, laying it all bare again, splaying myself wide open again, and asking all the night owls and insomniacs to keep me company because I have always been and will always be one of them, and I couldn't sleep again because I was writing again. I had to remember having suffered, writes Dara. The suffering was still there, but it was more even, the same with the emotion. But here, no, I can't see or hear anything. I've merged into the characters. It may be that I was trying unsuccessfully to say the same thing as I'm saying now, i.e., it wasn't a love affair that took place between the characters. It was just love. Another new draft of Desire is done. I can't talk about it. I don't know where to go from here. I don't know what's next. All I know is that for now, at least I'm blogging again. I've missed it. It was always there for me, and now here I am, crawling back. But why now? Before the young lover, when there was only her Portuguese lover, the tea house woman avoided his street, not wanting to see the lights on in his house or the silhouette of another woman. She drove the long way every Saturday night to and from Beeman and Sons, where the tea house has a standing order for 16 monoflorals: acacia, blueberry, buckwheat, clover, dandelion, fireweed, heather, honeysuckle, mesquite, orange blossom, sage, sourwood, sunflower, thistle, thyme, tupelo, and 2 honeydews, German black forest, and Greek pine. She stopped once to surprise him on her way home, thinking he would be pleased. But when he saw her, he stepped out and shut the door quickly behind himself. She explained her presence by leading him to the side of her van and showing him the different glass bottles and jars, a few dark but most clear, with the exception of one amber, pointing out the various forms within: liquid, crystallized, pasteurized, and raw, chunk, strained, cream dried, ultrasonicated, filtered, and, of course, honeycomb. "Well," he said, "you certainly have your hands full." He guided her toward the driver's side and waved as she backed out. From then on, she drove 20 minutes out of her way each way just to avoid the memory, because the moment of betrayal is the worst. The moment when you know beyond any doubt that you've been betrayed, that some other human being has wished you that much evil.
Mhm.
Stopping there.
Sorry, I forgot that I'm hosting this.
And I wanted you to keep reading. So it's like, and.
Oh, it's such a luxury to be read to. So Miranda, read
The
to
honeycomb.
me.
I will read to you. So 2 more poems from the Horizontal Project in process. This one for my 3 tenors. I also like to see, what the form looks like. This poem, when I was 14 or 15, I would say there were like a Jeffrey Epstein on every block. And so this came out of that period. There's also an epigraph in it. Elizabeth Janeway wrote this extraordinary review of Lolita way back when, and she used this phrase in there, which is the epigraph, which is Humbert is all of us. Something to think on. I won't speak to the poem. The title is a May Swenson, from a May Swenson poem. Here is self's jungle ajar. We craved you, black sheep son of a gun millionaire, waiting for us every day after the 3:10 bell with nothing but time on your hands. Slim-hipped at start, suede, unsocked, soft, maid-washed shirt, tails out, tousled. We craved your ice-cold gifts. You'd say it's called gelato. We'd say, we know. Pistachio all around. You cruised us, we cruised you. My marble foyered girls, birthed by alabaster, raised by hired hands, all appetite and ache. We craved your low-slung Jaguar, first cruise control, the yes and no of it, must have both and all at once, please. We played cock tease, laid back bets down on and hung on the funk and power and glory of it. Ride around the park, Why not? So what if your dick came along for the ride? His tan hand on your bare knee, hot breeze, cool heat. We were in the arena now. Call it greed and need. The knives are sweating in the drawer. All right, yeah. This next one, also it's the early piece from the horizontal project. It looks like this, where I'm kind of really getting rid of all punctuation and just playing with sound flowing across the page. Unexpected text. Weren't we invincible until we weren't? Hot white shirts, short white lines, inhaling a blast long before we knew we'd need one, way before rehab or not. Not me. You? Good, you're not long gone too. A long, short, fine line. Cathedral on 110, you are out of the blue-skied, unerasable past. You say you and me, you say my long-lost name, spell it, special. You are my ungone, unforgotten, living simile. Where was the line, oh yes, between yes and not yes? We multiplied our long division times 2 when beauty turned heads on every downtown brick and mortar corner. Unclasping the red velvet rope, we were in and in and in, lensed in. You Patti Smithed me. My black leather jacket, your unlooped belt. We unverbed our verbs, our tough, soft, shredded hearts smelting the unconditional dark. Be well, darling, back, parentheses, and yes, I remember all that. Of the flesh, of the flesh.
Molly, you're going to give us your third and final installment.
Okay. Heartbreak, steady and present throughout my childhood and adolescence and into my young adulthood. Now it's here again, that old familiar feeling. Rebecca Solnit touches upon it in The Faraway Nearby. A book is a heart that only beats in the chest of another. Can we just linger on that line a while? A book is a heart that only beats in the chest of another. She continues, the child I once was read constantly and hardly spoke because she was ambivalent about the merits of communication, about the risks of being mocked or punished or exposed. The idea of being understood and encouraged, of recognizing herself in another, of affirmation, had hardly occurred to her, and neither had the idea that she had something to give others. The broken heart, I've carried it with me so long I don't resist it anymore. You think you will die, but you just keep living day after terrible day. Over at Poor Claudia, Danielle Vogel writes, for all creatures, the most primal form of shelter is a hollow, a simple cavity dug into earth, a depression in the sand, the carved out alcove of a tree. For a writer, the most primal form of shelter is a word. Think of the curve of a spoon, what shapeless form it's meant to cradle, carry, hold, lift, raise. Think of an egg, its perfect fit. Think of your back pressed fast to your lover's chest. Think of your lover's arm around your body, how it shields. Think shelter, think love, think how fragile the shell. A week ago, Her Portuguese lover had read to her on the couch. How the rain is pouring down on them, how it trickles between their breasts, how it lingers and disappears into the darkness of the pubis, how it finally drenches and flows over the thighs. The tea house woman imagined herself standing with those three graces beneath the falling rain, the girl with the dark glasses, the wife of the first blind man, the doctor's wife. Her eyes welled, her throat constricted. The sky is clouded over, the doctor's wife assured. Not even God could see them. Only I can see you. There, her Portuguese lover stopped, setting down the book and pulling her feet onto his lap, massaging, kneading, thumbs pressed into her soles. She was wearing black silk stockings with black seams at the backs of her legs, Cuban heel, thigh-high lace top. What's on your mind? He wanted to know. I have more to offer than this, she thought, right? Gifts more meaningful than hooker stockings and stilted conversation over Christmas Eve stew. I want to tell you something, so listen, she should have said. But what came out instead was, let me help you with the dishes before we go to bed. Only I can see you. There, her Portuguese lover stopped, setting down the book and pulling her feet onto his lap, massaging, kneading, thumbs pressed into her soles. She was wearing black silk stockings with black seams up the backs of her legs, Cuban heel, thigh-high, lace top. She had put them on after her shower, after the kitchen was clean and the tea house was closed for the night. Rolling the left stocking up her leg, she wondered why she hadn't heard from him in so long. Rolling up the right, she wondered, why the invitation to see her now on Christmas Eve of all nights? Was he just lonely? She remembered what Nell had suggested so long ago. Maybe you could wear something, or not wear something. At Beeman and Sons, she had ignored Beeman's teenage sons as they stole not-so-subtle glances at her legs while packing the back of her van with stacks of crates. When they were done, she drove to her Portuguese lover's house and shivered at the sight of his lit windows. She parked, knocked again. He came to the door, and when he saw her, he stepped out and shut it quickly behind himself. She explained her presence by leading him to the side of her van, where she showed him her 16 monoflorals and 2 honeydews. Pointing out their different forms, she told him Sundays were the beginning of the tea house's work week, and after holidays, always the busiest day of any given week because of the brunch buffet. Well, he said, you certainly have your hands full. Well, she said, you certainly have your hands full. He came to the door with an alligator oven mitt on one hand and holding a saucy wooden spoon in his other. She stepped inside and accepted his kiss on her cheek. Unbuttoning her overcoat, she spread open her lapels to reveal pale pink satin lining against her naked body, but for her stockings and heels. He turned away. Sorry, I need to check the stew. Her cheeks burned. She wrapped herself back up inside her coat and considered leaving, but curiosity made her follow him into the kitchen. Listen, he said, I appreciate what you've got going on here, but I haven't seen you in months. It'd be nice to just have dinner and talk. She nodded. Okay. Okay, he said, grab my robe or something and come pick a bottle of wine. After dinner, he read to her on the couch. Her eyes welled, her throat constricted. Only I can see you. What's on your mind? He wanted to know. Books are finite, she wanted to say. Sexual encounters are finite, but the desire to read and to fuck is infinite. It surpasses our own deaths, our fears, our hopes for peace. What's on your mind? He wanted to know. I have more to offer than this, she thought, right? Gifts more meaningful than hooker stockings and stilted conversation over Christmas Eve stew? I want to tell you something, so listen, she should have said. But what came out instead was, let me help you with the dishes before we go to bed. Actually, he said, I don't think you should spend the night.
Oh. Oh, Miranda, take us home with some of your students, right?
Or I can take it home with students, or I can give you another poem. What would you like?
Your choice, oh noble reader.
I think I'm going to forgive me, 190ers. I think I'm going to take you home with one more poem from the Horizontal Project. This is Memory of the Future, because the 190 It's long, guys, and I didn't feel right cutting it because it belongs to you. So forgive me. This is Memory of the Future, Prophecy of the Past, also from the Horizontal Project. These days, the people who come to me in my dreams are often dead, alive in my dreams, dead again when I wake. What to do? Dream them back to life again? Meanwhile, my therapist tells me today he thinks I'm terrific. An intimacy arrives after a decade or two, the lightness in a long story. Terrific. I hadn't heard anyone use that word in a while, so I looked it up from the Latin terrificus, verb terrere, to frighten. These days I am frightened, not of death, but life as it swirls faster and faster like dishwater down a drain after a long, satisfying dinner. Once, long ago, as the family cat, also known as Puss Bear, childhood pet names are made of gibberish and love, lay dying under the old oak by the porch. Porch's person. The missing never stops, just migrates like the seasons, a hot missing, cool missing, a frozen missing coming around the corner to warm again. Where was I? Oh yes, my mother appearing at the white Dutch door, the front door of the now childhood gone Victorian Dutch door as metaphor for our family, one half always open, the other always closed. Leave her there, she called out to me. I had carried Bear there in search of shade. It was August. It's time for lunch. Being a perfected girl, I did as I was told, leaving Bear, her tidy cat mouth making strange yawning motions, opening and closing silently. Of course, you know the rest. All summer long, I've been watching and admiring the hornets at work in the apple tree. Did you know they make their nest by chewing wood and making pulp? Google hornet's nest and all you get is how to get rid of a hornet's nest. Well, I told the girls who come to stay every August to stay away, but can't you see its beauty? It's alive, it's a hive of life. They squealed and ran away to the bay. From the size of a brown leaf to a bark-colored cone, all summer long, it grew and grew, cell by cell, 700 hornets strong, until it appeared one day to me as an urn. My mother's ashes, dead, this past June, in a box in my living room. November. The hornets dance their nuptial dance. In the coming cold, the colony will die off, but not the new queen. She burrows underground. The new queen lives on.
Oh my goodness, thank you both so much. That's just various forms of haunting and enchantment and casting of spells. We have a question from the chat from Amy Shiner, who was asking about the inclusion of quotations that Molly, you did in your manuscript. And I want to sort of broaden the question a little bit to be about borrowings in general. Miranda, you have your May Swenson poem titles, and how does borrowing operate for you as a writer? What is its, I guess, functionality? And Amy had asked, do you write from the borrowing? Do you borrow first and then, let's get her exact words. Was it the quote that inspired you to write this, or did you have the idea first and search for the quote? So Molly, why don't you start, and then Miranda, if you would talk a little about your borrowings as well.
Sure. So it's actually part of that manuscript project to do that to the reader, to make them wonder which came first. Did the words from that word list actually inspire the nonfiction? Is it actually even nonfiction? And then which came first, the novel or the nonfiction? And I think of it like rhymes in poems. If you can guess which word is there to just rhyme with the other word, it's not a successful rhyme, right? So that's how I'm thinking about the fiction and the nonfiction and the quotations. If you can tell which one is there just to serve the other, then it's not a good mix for me. Amy, I will have this conversation with you like privately and tell you which came first for real. But for the purpose of the project itself, that's the question. Yeah.
I'll join you in that conversation. I think with this, I was so captivated by Mae Swenson, and I happened to be, this is this thing about what you're reading and how it informs what you're writing. So I was reading her while I was writing this. And I would be working on a particular piece, and then I would be reading this poem, and there in the poem would be this line, "Here is self's jungle ajar." Could I have come up with that title? I don't think so, but it was just, there it was, speaking to me from her poem. So I would say, in most cases in this project, I was involved in a particular topic, and then as I was jumping into reading, it's a big volume. Thank you, Julie. For some reason, we were kind of twined. I really can't quite express why we were kind of twined, like me and Lady G. That every time I would look over, I would go, "Oh gosh, there's the title." I would say, "Thank you." You know, memory of the future, prophecy of the past. I couldn't have come up with such a beautiful title. So I feel like she was kind of with me in spirit, since it's the spirit and the flesh, she was kind of with me in spirit in this project. And I feel her titles elevate my work in a way. And it's the voice of, it's somebody else's voice that's coming in. I'm sure Molly's having this experience that kind of shores your own up. It gives you some kind of confidence. Oh, look, May's on my side, you know. So you feel less alone. You know, it's a form of companionship in a way. You know, that her book's always there on the right-hand side, and it's always open. So those are my thoughts there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that sort of partially, well, actually kind of answers, but also leads to my other question about how writing itself as an act of haunting, as an act of repetition, as an act of you know, will trying to shape events that don't do what you want them to do, you know, sort of scripting experience. Maybe writing stays so close to the surface in both of the choices that you guys made of what to read today. You know, so I just wrote down a couple of quotes, like unverb are verbs. Miranda, from a poem that's kind of in the middle of a betrayal, but a sexual heightened, you know, state, to come up with unverb are verbs, you know, makes writing so conscious. And then Molly, I wrote down one of the quotes that you brought up, primal form of shelter is a word, that sort of physicalizing of language. And so can you talk a little bit about that, what that comes from? Why is it necessary for writing to be so consciously part of the experience that you know your readers are going to have? They're always going to be reminded of the act of writing.
So I'll jump in and then we'll go to Molly. We'll reverse our roles. I just, I was just thinking about when I was working with you, Julie, and we were reading Elizabeth Bishop. And I didn't read this particular poem today. It was inspired, prompted by a Syrian Carson poem. But the way Elizabeth Bishop appears within her poems in those parentheses, where you have this sense of, oh my gosh, I am with her as she is writing this. So it creates this sense of being present with the author as they are writing the thing, the poem which you are actually reading 20 years. So it gives this kind of liveliness, this kind of freshness where you're jumping with the mind. I think it's like this jumping with the mind of you're inviting the reader to be in the present with you as you're writing the poem. So whenever I read Bishop poems, I'm just like, oh my God, it's just so electrifying. Thank you, Julie, because there she is saying, I'm speaking to you. I'm trying to think of that last line in a poem. Everyone loves us all, or
Oh, everybody, somebody loves us at the end of filling station.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There she is saying to you,
Somebody loves us.
I'm jumping out of this poem to say to you, reader, somebody loves us.
She also has that amazing hornet's nest that I think it's Santorum.
Oh, okay.
She buys this hornet's nest in Brazil from a thrift shop, and she brings it to the counter, and the guy behind it says, "What's this ugly thing?" That's the last line of that poem. It's kind of the opposite, but the same as.
But the same, yes. Those are my thoughts. Over to Molly.
So this book is all about reading and writing, and in the preface, which preceding what I read, it's very, very quote heavy, and by the end of the book, those quotations have fallen away, and I find, well, maybe I whoever I is, I like find my voice. I'm able to relinquish the reading and the act of making of a person when you find yourself in books, when you find something in a book that's reflected back to yourself. So that's just very, very prominent in the beginning. And then by the end of it, that voice is able to have their own voice. They don't have to borrow from they don't have to construct themselves from all of these other writers. But so in that preface, I've got, there are so many writers who write about how they started out writing, which was they started out as readers. And you could not believe how many writers talk about hiding and reading under their bed covers with a flashlight. It just pops up again and again and again. And I think I don't know, there's something about, like, talk about like feeling reflected in yourself. That was me, right? And yeah, so this whole book's about reading and writing and how you find yourself in books. Yeah.
And that seems especially urgent now, and I don't know why. Do you, Molly? These are like super hard questions.
Reading has never been more important than it is now. Empathy, getting to be in somebody else's head and see the world. Yeah, that's all I've got. But yeah, I don't know, Miranda.
I would say companionship, which is sort of like, I've had Mae Swenson like open on my desk for like the last year, but just it's such in this place where companionship feels so fraught, or you can't have it, or you can't see that person, or you can't touch that person, that, a book is a gorgeous companion and a safe companion right now, and a moving companion and an inspiring companion. So that's how I feel about it. I feel that even reading my students' work, that their work that I'm reading are my current companions. reading their work thinking, gosh, can I help you go here? Or there's a companionship because I can't see them in having their work, which is the written word, right? Which is, I think, so filled with spirit now. So those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's an awfully great place to land, I think. I'm going to give everyone some homework because, we're an academic outfit here. Why not? We have that power. I'm going to give everyone the homework tonight. When you go to bed, you pick one of your companions from your bookshelf and you get under your covers with your flashlight and read and go back to that moment when you discovered how urgent and social reading is. So that's everyone's homework out there. For our two amazing readers, Molly, Miranda, thank you both so much. We're just so honored to have you in our midst. To be continued. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Julie.